The storm outside howled like a pack of wolves, rain pounding against the windows of Mrs. Agnes's small cottage. The elderly woman, wrapped in her warm shawl, sat by the fireplace, sipping her evening tea. Suddenly, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the quiet room. She froze. Who could it be at this hour? Opening the door, she found 2 small figures standing in the rain, a boy and a girl, no older than 7. Their clothes were soaked, their faces pale with a mix of fear and determination. "Please," the boy stammered, his voice trembling, "we need to tell you something important. Before we dive into this story, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe." Mrs. Agnes ushered them inside, her heart aching at the sight of their shivering bodies. The crackling fire cast long shadows across the room as the twins sat on the old, worn-out couch. "What are your names?" she asked gently. "I'm Leo," said the boy, glancing nervously at his sister. "And this is Lily." The girl nodded, clutching her brother's hand tightly. "We came because..." Leo hesitated, his small hands fidgeting. "Because it's about your son," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Agnes felt her breath catch. Her son had been gone for years, vanished without a trace. Mrs. Agnes stared at the twins, her mind racing. "My son," she whispered, her voice shaking. "What do you know about my son?" She hadn't spoken of him in years, the pain too much to bear. Leo and Lily exchanged a nervous glance. We think we know where he is," Leo said, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. The room grew eerily quiet, the only sound the faint patter of rain against the window. Lily reached into her small, tattered bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This map," she said, handing it to Mrs. Agnes. "It's where we last saw him." Agnes unfolded the map with trembling hands. It showed a forest nearby, with a red X marked deep within. "But how do you know this?" Agnes asked, her voice a mix of hope and suspicion. "We'll explain everything," Leo said, his eyes filling with tears. "But first, we need to go there, tonight." Agnes hesitated, the thought of venturing into the dark forest filling her with dread. But the look in the twins' eyes told her she couldn't ignore their plea. Wrapping herself in her warmest coat, she grabbed an old lantern. As they stepped outside, the storm seemed to calm, as if the night itself was holding its breath. The twins led the way, their small feet moving with surprising confidence. Agnes followed closely, clutching the map. "This place," she thought, "could it really hold the answers I've been seeking all these years?" The forest loomed before them, its towering trees swaying gently in the wind. The air was damp and smelled of moss, and every step crunched on fallen leaves. The light from Agnes's lantern barely pierced the darkness, but the twins moved ahead as if guided by an invisible thread. "Why are we going here?" Agnes asked, her voice trembling. Lily turned her small face toward her. "Because this is where it all began," she said cryptically. Her words sent a chill through Agnes's spine. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a small clearing. The moonlight spilled through the gaps in the branches, illuminating the ground. There, at the center, was an old, weathered bench covered in vines. Agnes gasped. This was... She faltered. This was his favorite spot. Lily nodded. "We know," she said softly. Leo took her hand, his small fingers trembling. "Mrs. Agnes, he left something here for you," he said. Agnes's heart pounded. Could it be true? After all these years? Lily knelt beside the bench and began digging with her hands. The soil was soft, as if recently disturbed. Agnes's breath quickened as the twins unearthed a small wooden box. It was wrapped in a faded blue cloth, the same color as her son's favorite scarf. Agnes's hands shook as she took the box and carefully opened it. Inside was a locket, a letter, and an old photograph. Tears welled in her eyes as she recognized her son's handwriting on the envelope. With trembling fingers, Agnes unfolded the letter. The twins watched silently as she read, her eyes scanning the words that seemed to leap off the page. "Dear Mother," it began. "If you're reading this, it means you found the box. I'm sorry I had to leave, but I couldn't stay." Agnes's tears blurred the rest of the words. She clutched the letter to her chest, her heart breaking all over again. "Where is he?" she whispered to the twins. "Do you know where he went?" Leo hesitated, his gaze dropping to the ground. Lily's voice broke the silence. "We're the only ones who can take you to him," she said. Agnes stared at them, confusion and hope swirling within her. "But why?" she asked. Lily's voice grew softer. "Because he's waiting, but you'll need to be brave to meet him." Agnes felt the weight of their words. Something deeper was unfolding, something she wasn't sure she was ready to face. The twins led Agnes further into the woods, following a narrow, winding path. The trees seemed to whisper secrets as the wind rustled their leaves. Agnes clutched the locket from the box, its cool surface grounding her in the growing unease. "How do you know my son?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Leo glanced back, his expression unreadable. "We'll explain everything soon," he said. "But first, you need to see him." The path ended abruptly at a large stone marker covered in moss. Etched into the surface were faint letters that Agnes could barely make out in the lantern's glow. Her heart sank as she read the name, Jonathan Gray, beloved son and brother. Agnes's knees buckled. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "This can't be." The twins stood silently, their small faces solemn. Leo's voice broke the heavy silence. "He's still here," he said. "But not in the way you think." As Agnes knelt before the stone, the air grew colder. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed through the clearing. "Mother!" it whispered. Agnes's head shot up, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Jonathan!" she called out, her voice cracking. The twins stood beside her, their small hands resting on her shoulders. "Listen," Lily said gently. "He's trying to tell you something." Agnes gripped the lantern as its flame sputtered. The surrounding darkness seemed to close in, amplifying the voice. "Mother!" "I'm sorry," it whispered again, clearer this time. Agnes's heart raced, torn between hope and fear. "Jonathan, is it really you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The twins exchanged a glance but remained silent. A breeze swept through the clearing, carrying the scent of wildflowers and the faintest sound of laughter, like an echo from a memory. Lily knelt by the stone marker, brushing away the moss to reveal more writing beneath Jonathan's name. Agnes leaned closer, her eyes straining to read the words etched in small, precise letters. "The bond of love transcends time." "What does it mean?" Agnes whispered. Leo stepped forward, his voice steady but soft. "It means he's still connected to you, Mrs. Agnes. You just have to listen with your heart." The locket in Agnes's hand grew warmer, as though it were responding to his words. She clutched it tightly, desperate for answers. A faint melody began to drift through the clearing. It was a lullaby Agnes used to sing to Jonathan when he was a child. The notes carried memories of warm nights and whispered promises. Agnes's breath hitched as she recognized it. "Do you hear that?" she asked the twins, her eyes searching the dark woods. Lily nodded. "He's trying to remind you," she said. "But there's more you need to see." The twins motioned for Agnes to follow them again. A faint glow appeared ahead, lighting a narrow path through the trees. It wasn't from the lantern, it seemed to emanate from the ground itself. Agnes hesitated. "What is this place?" she asked. "It feels alive." Leo nodded. "This is where memories live," he said. "And where the truth waits." The glow pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, leading them deeper into the woods. The glowing path ended at a small, shimmering pool of water. Its surface reflected not the sky but images, snapshots of moments from Agnes's past. She saw herself as a young mother, holding baby Jonathan, laughing as he splashed in the rain. "What is this?" Agnes whispered, tears streaming down her face. Lily knelt beside the pool. "These are your memories of him," she explained. "But they're also his memories of you." Agnes's heart ached as she reached out to touch the water, but the twins stopped her. "Not yet," Leo said. "There's more to uncover first." As Agnes stepped back, the images in the pool began to shift, showing moments she didn't recognize, Jonathan as an adult. His face weary but determined. He was standing in the same clearing, holding the same locket she now carried. "What happened to him?" Agnes asked, her voice breaking. Lily's eyes filled with sadness. "He had to leave to protect you," she said. "But he never stopped loving you." The pool darkened, the images fading into shadows. Agnes felt the weight of unanswered questions pressing down on her. Leo placed a comforting hand on Agnes's arm. "You have a choice, Mrs. Agnes," he said. "You can leave now and hold on to the memories you've seen, or you can stay and discover the full truth." Agnes looked at the twins, their small faces glowing with sincerity. "I've come this far," she said. Her voice steadied despite her tears. "I need to know everything." The twins nodded, their expressions both solemn and hopeful. "Then prepare yourself," Lily said softly. "The next part of the journey will change everything." The twins led Agnes to the edge of the pool, where the water shimmered like liquid glass. The locket in her hand grew warmer, pulsing in sync with the glow of the pool. "Touch it now," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. Agnes hesitated, her fingers trembling as she dipped them into the water. The surface rippled, and a wave of warmth surged through her body. Suddenly, the air around her shifted, and the clearing dissolved into light. When the glow faded, Agnes found herself in a familiar place, her old kitchen. The scent of freshly baked bread filled the air, and sunlight poured through the windows. Sitting at the table was Jonathan, his face alight with a smile she hadn't seen in years. "Jonathan?" Agnes breathed, her voice thick with emotion. She reached out to touch him, but her hand passed through his form like mist. "Is this real?" Jonathan looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a warmth that melted her heart. "It's real, Mother," he said. "But not in the way you think. This is a memory, a piece of the love we shared." Agnes's knees gave way, and she sank into a chair that wasn't truly there. "Why did you leave me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Jonathan's expression softened. "I never left you, not really. I had to protect you from things you didn't know about. But I've always been here, watching over you." The scene shifted, and Agnes saw Jonathan standing in the woods, speaking to a shadowy figure. The figure's presence was cold, and its voice sent chills down her spine. "If you leave, you can never return," it said. "Do you accept?" Jonathan nodded. "If it means keeping her safe, I'll do it," he said firmly. Agnes's heart shattered as she realized the weight of his decision. "He gave up his life to protect you," Lily's voice echoed around her. "But his love never wavered. That's why he's still here, tied to this place." The vision faded, and Agnes was back in the clearing, the twins by her side. The stone marker glowed faintly, and the locket in her hand emitted a soft hum. "What do I do now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Leo pointed to the locket. "Open it," he said. Agnes hesitated before gently prying it open. Inside was a tiny piece of folded paper. She unfolded it to reveal Jonathan's handwriting, "Love never dies. I'm always with you." Tears streamed down her face as a gentle breeze swept through the clearing. For the first time, she felt a sense of peace. "Thank you, Jonathan," she whispered. "For everything." The clearing grew brighter. The lantern's flame burning steadier than before. The twins smiled at Agnes, their expressions no longer solemn but filled with warmth. "He's at peace now," Lily said. "And so are you." Agnes nodded, clutching the locket close to her heart. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadied despite her tears. "For guiding me." The twins led her back through the forest, the path now bathed in soft light. As they reached the edge of the woods, Agnes turned to look at them one last time. "Will I see you again?" she asked. Lily smiled. "We're always here when you need us," she said. And with that, the twins disappeared into the trees, leaving Agnes standing in the golden glow of the morning sun. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and know that in life, we often carry pain, regrets, or unanswered questions that weigh heavily on our hearts. Through Agnes's journey, we learn a universal truth: love transcends time and space, even when we feel it's lost. Agnes's emotional discovery, Jonathan's enduring love and sacrifice, reminds us that the bonds we share with others never truly break, even in the face of separation or loss. Her story urges us to cherish the moments we have with our loved ones, to forgive, and to find peace in knowing that love leaves an indelible mark on our lives. Here's the lesson: don't wait to show your love. Speak your heart. Mend what's broken, and treasure what you have before it's too late. Take a moment today to think about the people in your life. Is there someone you've been meaning to reach out to? Someone who deserves to know they're loved? Go to them. Tell them. Because, as Agnes learned, the connections we nurture now can bring peace and light even in the darkest of times. Remember this: love never dies, it lives on in the hearts it touches.